How many people live in California here? So you already know. How many people are part of the mafia? Bill? No? None of you? Everyone knows that we pay like 50 cents a kilowatt. It's unheard of anywhere else in the world. Anyway, I'm going to bring Mr. King up here, and he's going to take the next part of the session over. I'd like to thank everyone again for leaving your families, coming up here, and I'm looking forward to having fun with you at the baseball game tonight. Come on up, Mr. King.
Thanks, Bobby, and I'm sorry for being late. So the first time I went to Toronto must have been 2004 or so, and it was interesting. Half of me felt at home because Toronto is sort of half a mix of California, where I live, and half of Britain or London, where I've also lived for a little bit. And if you look at them, there are a lot of parallels. California is a leader in energy efficiency and demand response and smart meters in the US. Ontario is a leader in Canada. And Ontario has provided a lot of leadership in a lot of areas, and this morning we're going to talk about one of those, which is privacy. And as with smart meters, Ontario actually beat California to the punch. I mentioned California put out a draft decision on privacy last Friday, and there was a law passed last year. But Ontario's been at this for many years, and we're here to have the pioneer, the leader of that effort this morning, Dr. Cavoukian, who not just in Ontario, but globally has been a leader in privacy. Her efforts go back to 1997, well before we heard the term smart meter, and ultimately have culminated in this privacy by design that she's going to speak about. And one of the things she'll probably mention is that this was adopted at a worldwide convention of privacy commissioners last year as an international standard that could then be used anywhere in the world. So she'll give you details of that. She's been in there since '97. Her office works on privacy in all areas, not just in energy usage, but she became interested in this because of the smart meters. But privacy throughout consumers' lives. So telecommunications, banking records, and other areas. And she's the privacy commissioner. We don't have those in the US. Some other countries have them as well. It's kind of a cool idea. In the US, the federal government pretty much handles privacy issues. But there isn't a single person who sits and worries about privacy and making sure that consumers are protected. In Ontario, Dr. Cavoukian does that. So with that background, I'd like to bring Dr. Cavoukian up here and have you welcome her to California, hopefully her second home.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Chris, and it was so kind of you to introduce me and invite me to speak. Now, are we going to be here together? And we'll be happy to be here together. And then, okay, what you can help me do is pull the chairs back, because I walk back and forth, and I try to connect with the audience. Thank you so much, and a pleasure. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Just a pleasure to be here. I love talking to what I call the preach. I don't want to preach to the converted, so I like trying to preach to the non-converted, and you're probably a mixture of the two. So it'll depend on your interpretation of the kinds of messages that I have here. But I think the most important thing is to understand that the philosophy, the methodology, the paradigm that I'm going to present to you is never at your expense. It's never to the detraction of the business that you're in or the functionality that you are advancing. My only request, and this is a critical one, is that you extend the same to the area of privacy. I want your work to win, but not at the expense of privacy. And we can tell you how to do that. So the model of privacy by design is inherently win-win, doubly enabling. It's positive sum, not zero sum, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by that. But I'm always delighted to present this theme to new audiences that will hopefully be entering into the field. I was talking to Gary Bloom this morning about this very thing, and I said, there's only one thing missing on eMeter. And I said, you've got to brand it with privacy by design, because that's the kind of work you do, and this is what I hope to show you. And I know there's a way of doing this. There it is. I do it, and some kind person then does it. This is what I'm going to run through. I'm going to talk to you generally about why I think we need to change the paradigm of how we go about protecting privacy. And I'll introduce you to privacy by design. What does it mean? Why should you care? Why is it considered the gold standard? And I've just been talking to you about the need to reject zero sum. It's a very dated view. It's a view that will offer no rewards, and positive sum will. I'll explain that. Chris kindly mentioned the Jerusalem privacy resolution, which I'll go into greater detail, but once a year, all privacy commissioners, data protection authorities, all regulators meet annually, usually in Europe. Last year was in Jerusalem. The year before it was in Madrid. This year it's going to be in Mexico City. And we meet and do a number of things, but there's always a closed session at the end where we vote on things. And this was one of the few resolutions that was passed, and passed unanimously.